Hello, and welcome to Breaking the Guard. On today's podcast, I'm going to talk about when is the best time to start working on a new goal or new project. The short answer is right now, but let's dig into this a bit, right? Because oftentimes you might have some goals, some ambition, project that you want to work on, but you don't have everything quite lined up the way you would want it to, right? So there's a bit of planning that goes into place, and then you make the planning take longer as a way of procrastinating, or you just keep putting off to the next day. Like maybe you watch some fights and you get inspired. You're like, oh, I got to go back to the gym. Goes, okay, I'll go back on Monday. It's Saturday. Sunday, you forgot about it. Monday, you're busy. And then you never get started, right? It's probably happened to everybody at some point with something, right? We get a moment of inspiration, but rather than actually channel that, we let it fade. And unfortunately, motivation is like water in a cup that has a hole at the bottom. If you just let it sit there, it's going to drain out. So if you're waiting a few days and that's all the inspiration you had, it's going to be empty by the time you get to the day that you wanted it for, and now you don't have the motivation to do it. So this is why, in my opinion, when you have something that you want to work towards, there's a goal, a project, whatever the case may be, start working it the moment you get it, right? That you get hit with the divine spark, right? Like some inspiration, channel it. Because at the moment you're motivated, that is your best possibility of having follow through, right? So if you, let's say, were watching a UFC and you got inspired, instead of saying, oh, I'll go Monday, why don't you, rather than just say you're going to go Monday, why don't you make an appointment, right? Like if, or schedule a class, call the gym, something that starts making that commitment to attending. Go on your schedule, your planner, and block out the time that you're going to go in to train. Like, put in the work, right? Um, so at the very least, even though you can't go in the obviously in the future, but that you're doing more than just saying you're going to go, right? And in my case, a lot of times when I have goals or ambitions, I tell people what I'm going to do as a way of keeping myself accountable. Because for me, I feel like if I'm going to do something and I told everybody I was going to do it, it's going to look pretty bad when I don't do it. Because now I'm going to have to make an excuse, and I hate doing that. So that's not for everybody, but third party accountability does work, right? uh, Especially if you have people who can keep you honest, right? And make sure that you do stay on track. Like they're on your team, so they want to see you succeed as well. So if they see you not doing the work, they might push you to do the work, right? So again, that's another system. But regardless of what type of goal it is that you're looking to achieve, getting it done and getting started, boots on the ground, as quickly as possible is going to be the best path to victory. When I start getting ideas for like software or programs, uh, I start trying to work on it immediately. Now, if I'm in a place where I can't work in it, I'll go on my phone and I'll start writing things down, right? So like when I get inspiration about ideas or features or you know different ways of advertising or whatnot, I'll go on my notepad on my phone and start detailing everything out. So even though maybe I don't have the ability to actually work on it at the moment, I can at the very least have detailed plans of what I'm going to do once I get behind a computer and able to do my work, right? So Similarly, you could do this for a jiu-jitsu, wrestling, MMA. You watch the cool video of a technique rather than just go, oh, that's cool, I'll try it sometime. No, you're probably going to forget. Take notes, right? Write down the setup, the technique, the fine details that caught your attention, all right? And then you can make it a point, okay, next training session, I want to try to do this from this position, right? Or at the very least, drill it so I can see how it works. It's, I feel it's putting more intention, right? Versus just, you know, in your mind going, oh, that's cool, right? No, no, no. Go further with it, right? Don't just waste that moment of inspiration, because we all get it from time to time by seeing cool things, reading something very stimulating, having a good conversation. But if we don't act on it, we're going to lose that. So I urge you that whenever you do feel like you get that little light in your eye, right, where a light bulb went off in your head, don't just let the light bulb turn off without putting in some work. And for things that you can do right now, do them right now, right? If it's something simple, like let's say, oh, I want to do 50 push-ups a day. And then you go, you know what, I'll start tomorrow. Like, why start tomorrow? If you can think about it, you can do it. Just get on the floor and start cranking out some push-ups. There's nothing that would be more empowering to you than tackling something with that type of speed. Because there is a power in implementing immediately, right? And I know Lloyd Irvin is huge on this. If you ever been to any of his business conferences or whatnot, that was like one of the traits that he loved to see in people and entrepreneurs is people who implement right away. A lot of people like to collect information, right? They go to seminars, they read books, they listen to podcasts, right? And they collect all this valuable information, but they never use it. And that is essentially creating a library, right? A library can store all the knowledge of human history, but it can't do anything with it, right? So I don't want to be a library. I want to be a program that has information and that executes and creates output. So if you find that you're one of these people, which again, I confess, I have been one of those people on occasion, you need to start executing, right? You get a plan. Of course, planning is important, right? Like if I decided I wanted to, jump out of a plane on a parachute, I shouldn't just run onto the plane as fast as I can and just jump out. Forget that I needed a parachute, right? That would be a disaster. So, of course, things that require some sort of planning that are a little bit more complex, of course, plan. But don't sit in the planning phase for a long time, right? Like, plan just enough where you should feel fairly confident that you could execute it and then start going, right? You're going to make mistakes regardless of how well you planned, because it's just the nature of being human. We're going to overlook something. It's hard to execute something 100% flawlessly. You might see people execute things and go, oh, that went perfectly. And like, no, it didn't. There was a lot of mistakes in the background, but it was still planned well enough where the execution looked great to the outsider. But people who are inside, you can recognize. Like, I know I've done things where, like, I launched the Kimura Trap system right back in like 2012. That was a big success at the time, relative especially to like my expertise in internet marketing, which was extremely limited. But while on the outside, we sold out in 3 days and everything, I realized like there were mistakes that were made, right? One, I should have had more inventory, right? Could have made a lot more money if I had more inventory. I was a little bit, I guess, pessimistic about how many units I could sell, right? There was also issues that I didn't have retargeting at the time, which probably cost me, well, even though I sold out, but it would have been useful once I restocked to have all that audience that we captured be able to be retargeted and then follow up with them. So, I mean, there were lots of mistakes made, but nevertheless, it still was uh, a great success for me, right? But what was more important was for me to execute versus just keep planning. And I'll even share with you a little more than that, which is why I decided to do it. I, if you followed my Kimura trap story, I had started working on that around 2007. And initially, I wanted it to be kind of like an in-house secret, something that I would, unveil in competition and win tournaments with. Which like 2009 was the first, ADCC, which I used it well, and that's where I got my bronze medal. And after 2011, uh, unfortunately that Pal Harris and his incident kind of derailed me, right? And but there was something else because I still hadn't, released a system. I had a system, I had it all planned out, but I was like holding on to it. And it wasn't until we were in a mastermind group and one of the other members was showing their sales results. And this was a guy, nice guy, very knowledgeable, black belt, but no competition experience, no one really would have known him as a famous guy or whatnot. And he was making a lot more money than I was on online internet sales, right, at the time, which I was making zero at the time. And when I started seeing the results that he was getting, I'm like, man, what am I waiting for? Right? I think also at that time, the internet started to become a lot more valuable as a resource for researching people. Also, a little harder to hide things, right? Because now everybody was recording everything. Early 2000s, internet still wasn't a really big resource. I mean, there was stuff on YouTube and whatnot, but nothing major. Now, not like now where like anything you do is recorded somewhere, so like you can't hide anything, right? The moment you use it, everyone in the world knows about it. In any case, for me, it was more financial. Like I saw how well this guy was doing. I'm like, I can do this also. And after that mastermind group meeting, I went right to work on making websites, doing graphic design, recording the DVDs, filming them, setting up all the marketing campaign. I was a one-man army, did everything, and it was like about 30 days straight of grinding nonstop and doing, pre-launch, working with affiliates, coordinating all these things. And it was that one moment of basically getting inspired by seeing someone else succeed very well and realizing I can do this also. I don't need to wait anymore, right? Like, let me just get on this train. And that, of course, has been a life changing experience for me. So, shout out to Stephen Whittier, right? That was the gentleman I was talking about who does, he was 40 plus BTG, I believe. Uh, so that was a moment for me that changed. And that was a moment I went from being a collector of information to being an implementer, right? I started executing all the things I learned in all these things in these mastermind meetings and what that was going to for a long time and not doing anything with it, just collecting it. And I realized it's much better when you start using information because you gain feedback, right? Just like it's like if you did jiu-jitsu and all you did was drill and you never sparred. How good in jiu-jitsu would you actually be? Probably not that good. In your head, you're like, oh, I know all these different techniques. I've drilled them countless numbers of times. But if you never actually had to put them together in against a live resisting opponent, your understanding would be very limited. And this is kind of the same thing as somebody who has lots of goals and ambitions, but never actually gets started on them, right? Like they're just stuck in planning or they let the inspiration just fade away. So I believe that people who are more likely to implement quick usually end up doing better on the long term, right? Versus people who tend to overly plan tend to get stuck in a planning phase and never moving past it. And these are the same type of people that ultimately will look back and go, oh, I had the idea for that like 10 years ago. It's like, yeah, but you never did anything with it, right? Like, this guy had the idea maybe like 2 years ago, but he actually executed the moment he had the idea. So if there's anything you can take away from this, right? As I said, you have an idea to do something, you have a goal, an inspiration, some type of project, start it right away. Like I said, most things I believe you can get started immediately. But if you can't, at the very least, write extensive notes, extensive plans, detailed, not just like, oh, I want to make $1 million. Like, no, like very detailed, like how you're going to do it, what's going to be your first phone call, what's going to be the first email you have to send, and really getting into the weeds and setting mile markers for yourself. If you've seen anything of mine about goal setting and whatnot, then this is probably familiar to you. But put in a commitment to working on it. And I promise you, when you execute goals or ideas that you have right away, it is very rewarding, right? And that's why sometimes it's better to start small rather than think big. Like if I have the goal of, I want to make, or let's say, I want to do 100 push ups at once. Chances are, if I go to do 100 push-ups right now, I might not get there, especially if I was out of shape. And then you're going to be, this goal's not realistic, I quit. But if I said, let's do 50, that might be more reasonable. Maybe for you, it might be 20. But if you give yourself, smaller goals that are easily executable, when you do execute and you're successful, you get that little endorphin rush. It's like, boom, all right, I did it. Okay, now next time I want 25, and the next time 30, 35, 40, and start increasing the level of difficulty. Should sound familiar. This is pretty much what we do in weight training, right? We add weights, we add reps, we add sets, right? You increase the difficulty, but you don't start on the bench with 4 plates and expect to move it, right? You might have to start with just a bar, then you add 1 plate, and then you work your way up. So if you find that you're somebody that struggles to get started on a project or an idea, start with smaller ideas or get your big idea and break it up into a lot of small ideas. And then start executing the small ones as quickly as you can. You will build momentum as you start accomplishing these goals. You're going to build confidence, you're going to get experience, and that feedback is going to get you more ready to execute faster. Usually we're afraid of executing on an idea because we're worried it's going to fail. Right? Somewhere inside of you, you think, oh, this might not work out. And a part of you might be ashamed that you went after something and didn't do it. Either you were inadequate, your idea was stupid, or you're unlucky, or whatever the thing might be. This is all bullshit, right? That doesn't really matter. Ultimately, we just need to learn from whatever happens and then make a better plan next. That's all there is. But a lot of people feel like if they don't have a victory in their, that project, it's going to destroy everything they've ever done. And that's not true. I've had several projects that I've done that just fell flat on their face. Right? They had some early success and then they faded away. Okay, we live and learn. Let's go now, next one, right? People in the long stage, in the long end game, your early failures will lead up to building your later successes, right? So you don't have to dwell on them. So I feel like just being able to run through a lot of things quicker is going to be more instrumental to your success and better for you than just avoiding executing and just staying in planning, right? And then you have what they call the paralysis of analysis, right? Where you're just trying to figure out all the possible ways that things can go wrong and trying to create the perfect plan, which doesn't exist, or waiting for the perfect time, which also doesn't exist, right? Uh, Again, for me, the perfect time would be now, and we just get moving on it. Anyhow, I hope that helps, right? I think this is obviously valuable for any part of your life, whether it's a business or it's school, relationships, or fitness, health. These are all things that we should be tackling now. These are all important parts of your life. You have a health problem, fix it now. Right? You need to lose weight. Why wait till the next month or until summer or spring? No, get started right now. Right? That's probably the most important of anything I've mentioned here is health, because you can't do anything else if you don't have health. Right? So if you're not in the best health that you can be, or at least even if you don't care about being in the best health, at least in a level of health that you're fully functional, right? Which means I have full command of my body. I don't have any illness. I'm not obese or anything like that, and I'm not limited in any activity that I want to do. If you don't have that, you should be working on that now. And I can tell you right now, that is something that anybody can do, right? So if you look in the mirror, you're not happy with how you look, that's a problem that you need to fix now, right? And that you can clean up your diet, start incorporating more fitness and exercise into your regimen, and you can make results pretty fast. And by fast, I don't mean days, I mean months, and perhaps in some more extreme cases, years. But, you might say, oh, if it's going to take 6 months, that's too long. Well, what are you going to do in the 6 months that you weren't getting in shape? Getting in worse shape? It's gonna take the same amount of time, right? The 6 months are gonna pass whether you do the right things or the wrong things. So you might as well do the right things. At least that's how I see it, right? And similar for any other part of your life, whether it's you want to improve your relationship, again, why not start now, right? That's the best time to start. And this is something that obviously is important. If it's you're taking time to invest in somebody, whether it's an intimate relationship or it's a business relationship or it's just social friends, like we can always have better relationships, and like we can develop skills and make us better at dealing with that. So whatever the spot is that you need to pick something and start working on it immediately. Don't wait. Get started now. And if you don't know what to do about, maybe you're like, oh, maybe I do suck at school or in jiu-jitsu, but I don't know how to get better. Well, get an instructional, watch a course, take a seminar, and whatever you learn, start doing it. It's that simple, right? Read a book, like you want to be a better copywriter, get a copywriting book, read it, and start writing ads, or start writing copy, start writing sales letters, right? That's how you're going to get better, not by just reading it and then going, oh, that was good. No, that means nothing. That's like doing homework or without taking the test, right? In school, everything's about the test. Why? It's when you prove it. That's your sparring, right? That's your feedback. If all you did was just read books, you would go nowhere. So hopefully, like I said, that helps. If you need a little, kick in the butt, so to speak, to get you moving on something, let this be your kick.